Wood has done it again! The magic man has come up with another trick! Well, here's a chance to seal it! It's done! It's Georgie Kelly! Rotherham United's pathway back to the Championship is opening up!
Hello and welcome to New York Talk. This is the Rotherham United podcast, and I've got a feeling it could be another ref-heavy episode. We will limit it to this time because I can't be bothered to spend an hour complaining again. But you all know what's coming. You all know. You all have seen what happened on Saturday afternoon, so you get the gist. Just me and Mick tonight. Mick, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, Paul. You?
All right, thank you. Danny's put his family engagement before the podcast, which, as we all know, is very disappointing.
Unacceptable.
We'll do an internal investigation type thing and see what comes of it. Not good enough. First of all, we want to say thank you to Athletic Green, who continue to sponsor these episodes. So thank you very much. So I thought we'd do it, because we just sort of brush off and say thank you. And let people know exactly what Athletic Green do and what anybody's listening for sort of the first time. Basically, the AG1, which is Athletic Green's drink, is almost like an energy drink. It's all natural, full of vitamins. I think it's 75 vitamins in there. And essentially, you drink it first thing in the morning, and it makes you feel. It definitely does make you feel better. It's all natural. It's very, very good for you. Make anything else I've missed from that is important?
Not really. It's important for me because it means I don't have to eat any fruit and veg, which is always a bonus, isn't it?
I don't think it counts towards your 5 a day.
I'm not convinced that that's in their marketing blurb. However,
I don't think it is.
I've read the ingredients.
Yeah. But yeah, sustainably sourced. We do. Ben is not here, but Ben does highly recommend it as well. And Athletic Green, to make it easy, are going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is go to athleticgreens.com/Rotherham, and so that allows you to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So thank you very much, Athletic Green, who continue to sponsor us. We very much appreciate it. Let's see, we've got with us Steve Gunn is with us. YouTube user says, "Good evening, gentlemen." Robert again. Officials Dyer. Yeah, Neil Liversidge says, "Hi all." He had to miss yesterday's game due to COVID. I hope you're feeling better, Neil. Oliver Roberts with us, Paul Brock's with us, Phil Rawlinson, Chris Tether, a few of the people that I've missed out as well. Thank you all for joining us. I also say we put something out today about people seriously trying to join the New York Talk team. We will be, we've had a few people come forward, we will be in contact with you. I put it out and then had about 15,000 things to deal with today. So I haven't been able to get back to anybody who has responded, but we have seen all the messages that everybody sent so far, so we'll get back to you about that. Mick, so we said like 10 minutes to talk about the referee, or do you just think you're going to need longer than that?
No, I've thought about it. I honestly and truthfully, and I know genuinely, I don't want to talk about him. I don't, not him. No, not him specifically. Just in general, I don't want to talk about it, and I find it so frustrating, disappointing. You know, one of the things I thought about when we won promotion at the back end of last season was, yeah, it's great to get up into the Championship, but we know what's coming. You know, and it hurts. It does. It genuinely hurts that we have to, not just us, not just Rotherham United, virtually every team in the Championship have to put up with this week in, week out. It should have moved on by now. It really should have moved on, like we should move on. But you know what I mean? It just makes it so difficult.
It does, yeah. Let's talk about the key incident. We don't want to. We're going to keep it short, much more shorter tonight than we did in the Burnley game, because we want to start giving positive messages and comments to the players, because that's what they deserve after the last couple of performances. But let's talk about it briefly. Phil Rawlinson mentioned the comments: 3 great performances in the last 4 games, only 1 point to show is a tragedy. Our luck must surely change. Ray Spendley, evening lads, we played 2 teams who were in the Premiership last season, and match officials took the points off us, essentially. Yeah. So the key incident is the Chio Benny dive, according to the Mr. Whitestone. Yeah. Initial reaction, Mick. I mean, I'm sorry, actually, so I know your initial reaction. We're just talking through your initial reaction when it first happened. We know Chio. I'm going to say we've got Chio hasn't got form for diving. He may have got form for going down softly at times, but he's not a diver. Which made the decision to book him all the more crazy.
I mean, the referee doesn't know that. Obviously, that's the first thing to say. He doesn't know whether or not who's a diver and who isn't a diver. And to be fair to the referee, up to a point, he set his stall out very early in the game, where he wasn't giving anything realistically. You know, there were some blatant pushes by both teams. One in particular springs to mind by Wes Harding on a two-handed push in the back of a Norwich player that he just didn't give. So he clearly set his stall out to let the game flow, if you like, for the want of a better term, and put into practice the edict that came down at the beginning of the season. You know, that it's a physical game, and so on and so forth. But he didn't do it consistently.
I know,
and that's the issue. You know, if he's saying to us, well, he was saying, and he did say that Chio dove. The thing that frustrated me more than anything else, and I was obviously, you were sat with me, I was absolutely furious at the time when he didn't give it. But literally 2 minutes after the restart, right in front of us, literally right in front of us, there was exactly the same challenge by a Rotherham player on a Norwich player. Both players came together, shoulder to shoulder. The Norwich player went down, tangle of legs, exactly the same, and he gives it. And it was weird because it was literally the same challenge. It was almost exactly the same, and yet he gives it. And it's like, why can you not? You've got to be consistent with these things. I mean, ultimately, that's a penalty. And I know people say, no, it's not. No, it's not. You know, they've gone shoulder to shoulder, or he's put his arm across him and he's gone down. They tangle legs.
And Chio was in front of him.
With Chio in front. Now, it's a penalty every day of every week. You can't really see it, I don't think, properly from the TV angle, but from the angle that the referee's at pitch level, and the angles that we've seen, certainly in Danny's vlog, it makes it perfectly clear that it's a penalty. However, what I will also say is, in the first half, Ollie Rathbone, hands in the air, should have given away a penalty at the other end. That also wasn't given. Now, whether that was seen or not,
the only caveat with the Ollie Rathbone was it was very close. I know the arm's up, but it was very, very close.
Yeah. But nevertheless, the arm's up in the air. It's not in a natural position and all that. But you know, it's a very similar challenge to the one against that Woody gave. The penalty that Woody gave at Coventry, in the way that the player's gone down, the reason why the player's gone down. And it's given. The one at Coventry was a penalty, no question about it in my mind. The one on Saturday was a penalty. But we don't get them, do we? We don't get them. And he's just compounded the issue by immediately, and I mean absolutely immediately, he's not giving it any thought whatsoever. The moment, in fact, probably before Chio's even hit the ground, he's blown and pointed the other way.
He couldn't wait to blow, could he? Could not wait to book him for diving.
Literally, Chio hadn't hit the floor before he'd blown and pointed the other way.
I can sort of understand why the referee might not give it as a penalty. Sort of. If I'm taking my Rotherham United hat off and being, you know, looking at it, I can understand maybe why he's not giving a penalty. But one thing is obvious, that it's not a dive. There's been an arm across him. At worst, he's been nudged off balance. Now, if you don't think a nudge off balance is a foul, okay, but it's not a dive, is it? And that's
not only is it not a dive. If he gets away from that player, he's on goal.
Yeah.
You know, it's not as though the ball's out of play already and he's lost control of it and everything else. He's going to get a shot away.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre decision, but it's just one of many that not only us, other teams also suffer. And I said it in the post match, and it's difficult these post match because you're still sort of hyped up and adrenaline's still flowing, and you're still furious. But I pull these people to pieces week after week. But they are professional people. They are paid to do this job. It is their only job. They're trained. They're highly trained, or they should be highly trained. And it's a very, very, very difficult job. I fully accept it. No two challenges are exactly the same, despite what I've just said. But they're not. We know that they're not, don't we? You know. So there's got to be an element of decision making in there. But you're doing it for a living. And when you consistently, blatantly get it wrong, I find it's bizarre. It really is bizarre that these people are not taken to task about it. And if they are, they're not taken to task effectively because it doesn't improve. You know, if you're not doing your job properly, you need mentoring, you need training, you need teaching how to do your job properly. You need more and more training. And it's not happening because it's the same thing week in, week out. A complete and utter lack of consistency. And part of that is down to the way that the rules, laws, whatever you want to call them, are interpreted as well. You know, because everybody can interpret them differently. We had a conversation yesterday about offside.
You already did that.
And it's like, well, how is he offside if he's not gone towards the ball? Well, he is this time. But last time when he did it, it weren't. And nobody knows. Genuinely, nobody actually knows. It would appear because what you tend to do is take a decision or a series of decisions as a guide, right? Each time that happens, that's obviously what the rule is. That's what the interpretation of the rule is going to be, and then all of a sudden it comes along and it's completely different.
Yeah,
it's just wrong. It's just wrong, and the issue is it affects clubs. And it affects club finances. You know, we said it when we went down last time out of the Championship. Not only did our lack of firepower cost us a place in there, but also many, many, many wrong, incorrect refereeing decisions also cost us our place in there. Because had those decisions gone the correct way and the law's been implemented properly, we wouldn't have gone down. So it needs to be addressed, and hopefully when Howard Webb gets in charge, gets hold of the PGMOL, hopefully we'll see some reform because it certainly needs that in my view. And it's about training. It's about training and clarity.
It's also about transparency as well, which we know is something that's key. There's an issue with refereeing. Somebody's put a comment here just jokingly. You get more info from the Masons and the rest of KGB. The Paul Davis mentioned this in his article last week. Referee assessments are private. Now, I get that to a point. It's, you know, if my assessment at work, that's my assessment. I get that, but this is a slightly different industry, which have knock-on effects to people's livelihoods. You mentioned livelihoods at the football club, the finance of the football club, this, that, and the other. There needs to be a bit more transparency about that, about how decisions are made. Matt Taylor's already complained essentially about referees laughing at him at the Coventry game and things such as that. It doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction from a refereeing point of view. Everything about it doesn't feel right at the minute. You know, there should be those questions should be put forward and given an answer to, and then next time there should be some sort of comeuppance. Again, not the right word, but it's consistent. It's two games in a row. We're getting shockingly bad decisions, and not just individual decisions. I think the referee had a poor game in general. Certainly, the second half he had a very poor game. Same with Lee Dowson the other night. Second half, he certainly had he was poor. Yeah, I don't know what the fix is, but we're not the only team that's been impacted on this. We're not, you know, we can sit here all day and say little Rotherham. I do agree with that to a certain extent. But I've also seen some other terrible decisions, not only in the Championship, in the Premier League at times. Don't know. I don't know what the way forward is, to be honest with you. But it's cost us 2 points potentially.
Yeah, it definitely has. There's no question about it. And Matt Taylor is due a fine at any point.
You get one, yeah.
There's no question that he will be getting a fine at some point. And I mean it's Orwellian, isn't it? It's 1984. You know, you don't criticize the party or else you're punished. It doesn't. It's not right. It's not right. But it is what it is, isn't it? You know, we're never going to change it. We can all sit here and complain about it, and football supporters have all since God were a lad have complained and moaned about referees, and that's how it has been. But unfortunately, the organisation that provides the officials don't help themselves either. You know, they're very much a closed shop and very much sort of very insular and don't want to or refuse to give any sort of explanation or thought process that goes into a decision for fear of criticism. And yet the criticism is worse because of that. You know, at the end of the day, you know, if the referee says at the end of that game, look, from my position, it looked like he dived. I didn't see enough contact to warrant a penalty. It looked like he dived. Yeah, we'd still be saying, well, no, he didn't. However, it gives you I don't know, it helps supporters, it helps players, it helps managers to reconcile what's happened a little bit because it's open, it's honest, you know, and it feels by being a closed shop and by not giving any sort of feedback whatsoever about anything, leaves people open to the ridiculous suggestions of corruption or incompetent, or the less ridiculous suggestions of incompetence. It just leaves you wide open, which is the very thing that I think they're trying to stop by not telling anybody anything. You know, I don't know. I don't know whether that makes sense, but we this is going to continue to happen for the rest of this season. There's nothing to assure us that there will be many more decisions that go against us that shouldn't go against us.
Oh yeah,
and at some stage, people say it balances itself out. In my experience of the last 3 visits to this division, it has certainly not come anywhere close to balancing itself out. Not even close. No. So we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of the season pans out. But we also have to accept as supporters that this is just going to continue, and we have to grow up. I'm saying that to myself as much as anybody else. We have to grow up and accept it, but it is hard.
Yeah, it is. Let's go through some of the comments. Mark Gamble says, "Hey, lads, coming more proud of lads over the last couple of games, giving everything and not anything to show for it. Only person worse than the ref on the pitch was the bugler at the start." Yeah, your attitude. If you watch the Derby Torquay game, the guy bugler on that one was off tube at first half.
It's tough. My understanding, and I've never tried it. I've obviously never tried it. It's a really, really, really tough instrument to play. My understanding of that. So it's a bit like bagpipes. You've got to accept it. It is what it is.
Yeah. Beautifully, it was a minute silence for most. Yeah. It was in the seats anyway. Still noise in the concourse, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. David Lawton says, "I think we feel hard done by, but there's been multiple penalties not given across the Championship and the Premiership this weekend, rightly or wrongly, depending on which team you follow. That includes VAR. The Man City one was also embarrassing. If nobody's seen that, go and have a look, because that is bad. And that had VAR.
Yeah, and there was another 2 in the Forest game where the one that was given was clearly not a penalty. In a million years, it's not a penalty. And yet there was one a little bit later on with the lad who used to play for United. Can't remember his name. The Wolves. No, the lad they brought him from Wolves. He played for United last season.
Oh, Gibbs White.
Gibbs White was where he was tripped, clearly tripped, because he cut back inside. Not given. You know, it's bizarre. You've got it there on TV in front of you. How can you not give it? It just and then De Bruyne. I mean, wow.
Yeah. A couple more comments. Jamie says, thought the pitch invader was Mick with the hats and the glasses. Do we think that Norwich should have had a penalty with the Rathbone handball? Yeah, they probably should with the Rathbone handball, to be honest with you. But I can mention earlier, with the distance from the kick to the hand, I understand why that wasn't given. There's sort of reasoning behind that one, but I can understand. Maybe I'm just running out of glasses in again. That I don't know. We obviously have to mention the throwing of stuff on the pitch and the idiot that ran on the pitch. Don't throw stuff on pitch. I know it's frustrating. I know it's angry. Matt Tiller mentioned this in his post-match about it being a boiling point. You can't be throwing stuff on pitch. And there's questions on the stewarding with the guy that ran on the pitch and then was allowed to walk off the pitch very slowly. There's question marks on that, to be honest. From my point of view, the stewarding's got to be better than that. We saw it happen last season with the guy that ran on and hit the Accrington player. The stewarding's got to be better than that. I know it's minimum wage job, and if I were them, I'd probably do exactly the same. But that's not quite good enough for me, unfortunately. Make anything out of those two incidents, probably move on.
No way I get myself into bother now. I'll keep my mouth shut on that. It's just stupid, isn't it?
It's moronic, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Paul Brock says, can the club get fined for pitch invaders and not objects being thrown? Yes, and rightly so as well, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to some more positive stuff. Ian Colclough with a very good comment that I like. So impressed with Matt Taylor. Yes, our last two games have sort of shown it. I'm still game to an extent, Mick, with essentially a four in midfield, but we got a bit battered on that game. But the four in midfield worked beautifully. We've been asking for Jamie Lindsay for weeks and weeks and weeks, and he worked really well. Him and Rathbone ran down every single ball. It allowed Ben Wiles to be much more positive. And this is probably Ben Wiles. I know he scored on Wednesday. This is one of Ben Wiles' best performances this season. He was at it for the full 90, and he was a real positive spark throughout the game, without having any real chances, obviously. But that midfield four probably is the way for him, the strikers to play alongside Tom Eaves now. But I was so impressed with that midfield four yesterday.
Yeah, they're outstanding. They're outstanding. It's great to see Jamie Lindsay back in squad. He is a championship player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not as though he's got masses of flair about him, but he plays his better football at this level than he does at the level before. So, and Ben Wiles was back on it. You know, he was absolutely back on it. So, if he can build on that, then hopefully, we'll see the best of him. Overall, the performance, I've got absolutely zero complaints about it. None at all. I thought they were absolutely outstanding, which makes it all worse, doesn't it? You know, it makes it more difficult to take. As Phil said earlier on, you know, that we've had three really good performances out of the last four games, and got nothing out of it, and it's undeserved, absolutely undeserved. So, but the positives are that the improvements that Matt Taylor is making to this squad, because we knew I felt right at the beginning of this season this is one of the strongest squads that we've had in this division, and he's now looking to start to build on that and bring out the best in him. You know, and we looked certainly in the first 10 minutes we looked incredibly dangerous going forward. We really did, without actually creating a clear-cut chance. It was going to come if had we been able to maintain it and not concede, unfortunately. So yeah, really impressed with him. I'm a bit sort of disappointed in his boiling point comment. I think that's a bit of an ill thought out comment, that you know, because it kind of it can be interpreted as making an excuse for stupid behaviour. But I mean, he's right. There's no doubt about it. He's right.
Yeah.
But the rest of him, the way he speaks, incredibly impressive. Really impressive.
I don't know if it's normal to sort of take to a manager this quickly. We've seen other managers go to other football clubs and not necessarily be taken to straight away. We've seen managers with history at certain football clubs and still not necessarily get a nice welcome. Everybody seems to have taken to Matt Taylor. There's been very little question mark. You always get a few silly people who are, Taylor out and nonsense like that.
Yeah. But
for the most part, everybody's taken to him, and I don't really remember there being such positivity straight away. We were Steve Evans. There was a lot of negativity to start with because it was Steve Evans. Andy Scott's honeymoon period didn't last very long. Previous manager was a club legend, so he obviously got a bit of time in a disastrous season anyway. He seems to have taken to the fans very quickly, having had no history, and I suppose it's down to him, isn't it? I suppose, or is it down to the players? I don't know.
I think it's a bit of both, but particularly down to him because he's so open and honest in his interviews. He's very much like the previous manager in that you don't get the usual manager cliches. Oh, we'll go again. We're back into training Thursday. We're only thinking about next game. You don't get any of that nonsense. You get some actual content from him. And that's what fans want, and that's why fans can kind of engage with him. He's pushing all the right buttons at the moment. Absolutely pushing all the right buttons. So we knew that this run of games were always going to be tough. I'm impressed with him though, and I'm impressed with the performances that the team are putting in.
2 in a row, 2 good performances in a row for the first time as well, which is key. Essex Moore, sorry, we were trying to get Alison Barlass on the Instant Reaction show yesterday, which was going out for tea. We'll try again in the future. We'll get Alison back.
Alison, you need to step up now. It's Christmas special coming up, so I expect you to be
on. John C, regardless of results, we are playing superb football. Ian Colclough comes back with, we are playing some great stuff, safe as houses if we keep playing that like nice. And Jalen Simpson says what I said. We've got 2 back-to-back performances as well, which is a good start. John Morrell back with us. He says, got to turn performances into points mind. Don't want to be one of those teams who play really well but don't have points on the board. That backs it up, as performances will drop off if that's the case. I mean, that happened 2 years ago and we got relegated. So you're right, John. You've nailed on the head.
And Birmingham are turning it around, aren't they? Birmingham were with us. Us and Birmingham and a couple of others were dead certs for relegation at the beginning of this season. Birmingham have turned it around. They're getting their points on the board. However, I mean, I don't know who they played, to be honest. I know they played Burnley. I don't know how many are at the top teams that they played.
19 games in now, so most of them.
Yeah, I suppose. But our issue at the moment is just the quality of the opposition that we're playing. We're playing top 5, aren't we? Essentially. So once we get back into the mid-table teams, you would hope if we can continue to play the way that we are, we'll start to put some more points on board. But we're on 21 points, man.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not a million miles to halfway where we need to be, and we're nowhere near halfway through the season. So, well, not far off.
We're 4 games away.
Yeah.
2 games after World Cup, we're halfway point. So let's talk about another reason we lost the game yesterday was the substitutions. Now, this is obviously not in the last couple of games. People have criticised Matt Taylor for his substitutions. You can't this time. There's nothing you can do in terms of this. Obviously, Conor Walsh just started. I had a really good start. I was dead impressed with Conor Walsh to start with. He was so important. His movement and everything else was so good. He then gets injured, knee injury. Georgie comes on because I assumed Chio wasn't ready to play a full game, to be honest with you. So I assume Georgie's come on in front of him. 10 minutes later, he's torn his hamstring by the sounds of it. Set pretty serious according to Matt Taylor. So then Chio has to come on, and that's all within half an hour or something like that. It was within no time. And then we have to make another sub just after half time. Was there another injury? Am I right in saying there was another injury?
Yeah, Grant Hall.
Grant Hall then did his knee, I think.
I'm not sure whether it's
not sure. Paul Davis has tweeted out about that, but yeah, Grant Hall then has to come off as well. So we're then sitting there on the 54th minute having to make all the substitutions. And I mean, well, having to use all our incidents of substitutions. What can you do, Mick? When you're 2-1 down, which we obviously were at the time, you want to bring an ex-striker on the 70th minute, on the 85th minute, something like that. He couldn't. He had to bring Tom Eaves on the 54th minute, and he clearly didn't want to do that. But he had to do it then, otherwise it would have been never. So, what can he do?
Nothing. And in terms of the impact on the game, I don't think it had a massive impact on the game. Well, maybe it is. You'll never know, I guess.
Yeah,
you'll never know, because if we'd continue with Connor Washington running Grant Hanley all over the pitch, or even Georgie running him all over the pitch, then it might have been a different game. But the issue you've got when you bring Tom Eaves on is you're matching up like for like, with the likes of Grant Hanley. So you're never going to get anything out of that, unfortunately. So I think the problem with it is that is moving forward over the next few games. It's a real problem for us, a real problem, because we've got nobody. We've just got, all we have got is Tom Eaves. That's it. Well, you say that, don't you? And we can come on
nicely on, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it does.
Chio obviously got moved out wide to right wing back. Peter Kyoso, briefly just on Peter Kyoso, I was very happy to see him. He was good. He was very good. Very happy with him. He's very positive minded, very very strong. Not much more to say on his performance. He's clearly getting fit. Chio has obviously scored 5 goals this season, Mick, but that was one of the best impacts Chio's had all season. Every time he got the ball, their left wing back, well, he just cacked himself, didn't he? He didn't want Chio to have the ball. Well, he fouled him in the penalty area, is what he did. But
no, he didn't. He didn't.
Sorry, anyway. Chio dived. Sorry. Chio was exceptional on that right hand side, and that's probably underpaying. I thought it was brilliant as a wing back.
He is a wing back.
Or winger.
It's just as simple as that. He is a wing back. He's far more effective, either as a wing back or as a part of a front three. He's not. He's scoring goals, and he can do the job up there, but he's more of a. He's a fill-in. He's a fill-in up there rather than an actual striker. When you get him out wide with that ball, he just causes no end of trouble.
Yeah.
He's far more effective out wide. Far more effective. But that unfortunately, what can we do now? We've got no choice but to play him up front.
Well, have we? We've got Tom Eaves at minute.
Well, we have, but Tom Eaves, with the greatest respect, I don't think he's going to get you the goals. I think. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see whether he will get a run in the side now. So we're just going to have to see how that pans out. But he's just going to get ragged about everywhere. He's never ever going to win a foul ever. No. That's just not going to happen. So, Chio for me out on that right hand side he's electric, wasn't he? Absolutely electric.
And it didn't water down Norton Cuffy. I thought Norton Cuffy on the left hand side. Well, again, he's been brilliant this season. I thought it was just as good on the left hand side. Max Aarons was 2 years ago one of the highest rated right backs in Europe. Barcelona and Bayern Munich were interested in him. And he just sort of schooled him from that point of view. So that's a positive. If we do need to play Chio on there, you can play Norton Cuffy on the left. There are questions about whether Arsenal want him to play on left wing back. And bear in mind that he is their player, and they can recall him in January. You've then got to be careful in what you do with Norton Cuffy. But if Chio's going to play like that, you've got to play him out there, haven't you? You've just got to.
I think so. Yeah, I genuinely do. Yeah, I think that is his position, and he is exceptional at it.
Yeah. James says here, would you be tempted to put Chio back as wing back because he was insane? Yeah, well, Jamie, completely agree. He was so good. It's a headache now. We're going to talk about Sheffield United game and the 7 players we've got left to pick from. Six of them are central midfielders, I think.
Yeah.
We'll come on to that in a minute. We have not really talked about Ollie Rathbone, Nick, and that's not fair of us, to be honest with you. 35 minutes in. He gets better and better, and he's taken to the Championship like a duck to water. He's kept Jimmy Lindsay out of the team, and that takes some doing, to be honest with you, because we all know how good Jimmy Lindsay is at this level. Having said that, Norwich City almost laid out the red carpet for him to score the first goal. They couldn't have wished for more space, could they, for that goal?
No, I mean, that was dreadful defending. I mean, it was dreadful, awful defending, weren't it? You know, just for defenders of the experience as well. I mean, what did you think were going to happen? You know, and you had so much time. You know, you backed off and backed off and backed off, stopped, and then backed off again. It just made no sense at all. And to be fair, Chio made a run, which made it even more difficult for Rathbone, but we didn't bother with that. We didn't take advantage of that. Just no, here, after you, mate, have a shot. So yeah, I mean, it was good. It was a good run. Don't get me wrong, but the defending was just dreadful, shocking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's always a worry that you can't play two similar players like that. I mean, you look at back in the England days of Gerrard and Lampard, two similar players didn't necessarily work. These are obviously very different players. They're very energetic. They're very aggressive players. So there's always a question whether A, you can play them together, and B, whether you need to play them both together. But we've seen that, it works. It allowed Barlaser an extra bit of freedom. It allowed Wilesy so much more freedom. They start, if they're fit, start them both every game because they are brilliant, Jimmy Lindsay and Ollie Rathbone. Yeah,
and he went on to this 3-5-1-1 formation with Wilesy just in behind whoever it was, the 5,000 people who played up front yesterday, and that allows you that extra man in midfield, and it works really well. It works really, really well. It does give Dan Barlaser, like you said, more time.
You were brilliant yesterday and all.
He was outstanding again, yeah. It was absolutely outstanding. He ran the show again. Ben Wiles was excellent, like we said. And it is working. There's no doubt it's working. But it presents us with a problem for Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever we're playing. I don't know. Is it Tuesday? It's Tuesday, isn't it?
Tuesday, yeah. Tuesday night.
Simply because of the lack of defenders we've now got, you know, so that's potentially an issue. I suspect we'll see. Well, we'll come on to the United game shortly. So, but what question?
Just Rathbone and Lindsay.
Oh, the Rathbone, that was a question, wasn't it? Yeah.
Lindsay did one of them games where he was excellent again, but you don't really notice him. He just goes about and does his own thing. He's happy to put his head where it hurts, happy to put his foot where it hurts.
I feel with Jamie Lindsay, he's very comfortable on the ball. And I feel he's more likely to pick out a pass in that central area than Ollie Rathbone is. Not much, but I think he is more likely. So yeah, it's a really, really strong pairing for me. That
John Morell says. We'll talk about Sheffield United, but Sheffield United got a really good midfield, needs some ball winners to compete with Norwood and Fleck. That's the reason this formation came in, is because of Burnley, because of how good Burnley are in the centre of the pitch, and we just essentially stopped them playing through the middle. They had to do everything out wide because of the players that we had in the centre of the pitch. Same thing with Norwich yesterday; they couldn't play through it. We were the ones playing the ball through the middle yesterday, weren't we? We were the ones playing the football against Norwich, who were supposed to be one of the best footballing sides.
There's some lovely one-touch stuff, some really nice, intricate passing moves, and it was just a damn good performance. They deserve more from the game.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did. Jalen Simpson says the kids all got their autographs before the match. They told Ollie, "Don't get that yellow card," and he didn't. That's the 19th game. So Ollie Rathbone has escaped a suspension. I think I've been wrong about this before. As best as I can read the rules, he's now safe, so he can get another 6 yellow cards between now and the end of the season without another suspension. Or there is a cut-off from 10, isn't there? Which is about
no idea.
Yeah, You can get 5 after 19. I assume it's 10 after 38, which is 2 match ban, and then 15. If you get 15, I think it's 3 games. But I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway. We've got another comment here from Paul Brock, which we'll cover. Saw some people on social media saying we should drop Victor. Paul Brock, absolute nonsense thoughts. I mean, he didn't do it. The only mistake I'm willing to give him is the Burnley one. The Burnley third goal, he probably should have done better. But he almost single-handedly won us the points against Stoke and other teams. He couldn't do anything about the goals yesterday. And he got a strong hand to the second one, which took a wicked deflection.
Yeah, I mean that's just that. I mean, wow.
You think it was Josh Vickers' brother that were tweeting?
Yeah. I think it was somebody related to Josh Vickers that said that. That's probably. And I mean, let's be fair. Towards the back end of last season, we heard some utter moronic stupidity in terms of some of the comments. But that is right up there. That is top level stupidity. Oh man!
If you are one of those people, perhaps to get in touch, but I don't.
If you are, cricket's a really good game. You could watch that. Tennis, Rotherham Rugby Club are doing all right. Maybe you could watch that. I don't know. Something else.
Yeah, I don't get the big. If you criticise Victor this season, it's the same if you were criticising Vickers last season when Vickers went through that insane performances. I don't get it. I think it's Anyway, I don't need to defend Victor. His stats stick up for himself. I think. Nicholas Skidmore says he did very well to save the deflection because it was going the other way. Ian Colclough agreed Burnley was a mistake, but massive deflection yesterday. Did very well to save it. YouTube user, if we stay up, you can thank Victor, which I think is a very good point. Yeah. Let's move on from that because I don't know what else to say. Anything else you want to cover from the Norwich game, Mick? I feel like we've glossed over a lot of really good performances, but it was just a really, really good performance from us.
Yeah, it was. It's disappointing, isn't it? It's disappointing. You look at the quality that they've got in their side, and we absolutely gave them a run for the money, and like we did against Burnley. There's some quality players. Pookie is a footballer. It's what can you do? And they make their substitutions and they're bringing on players allegedly worth more than our flipping stadium.
Apart from the Pound Shop Cantwell, Pound Shop Grealish, sorry.
Pound Shop, but Jack Grealish there, spent more time messing with his hair than he did actually playing football, didn't he? But other than him, they've got some quality. They have some quality.
I thought Sargent were good. Sargent ran all day long. I was dead impressed with Sargent.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was not a lot to choose between those two sides, in my view. I am biased, obviously. I'm going to be biased, but you wouldn't say that they were a Premier League side and we were a League One side last season. You wouldn't, as a neutral, I wouldn't have thought anyway.
Those close games against Norwich. They're always really close games, to be fair. Ian Colclough asked about what Dean said after the game. Dean Smith said, "No, to be honest with you, I try to avoid Dean Smith wherever possible." I have an irrational dislike of Dean Smith. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I don't really like him. I said to you yesterday, Mick, he's my new Carl Robinson. I don't know why. But I don't like him. There's just something about him.
We'll see if he can get Lee Johnson in as an assistant, and then it'll be a perfect storm for you, won't it?
Good. Yeah, good.
Dean Smith and little Lee Johnson.
Yeah. John Rell says, depressing, is it? They had 7 minutes injury time against Norwich, so they brought on Pookie, Campbell, and Arnold Hernandez.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. This is what you're up against. And Birmingham have obviously got much better players than us, or certainly some sort of brilliant loanees as well. So this is what we're all up against. But it is what it is. And don't
it
get
makes
any
it
easier.
exciting. It makes it interesting, and you know, I mean, not wanting to go back, if it were a level playing field, then we'd all get a lot more out of it as well, wouldn't we?
Yeah, what I will say is that those days and the whole game a few weeks ago, that's why we want to go back at Championship, to play these teams that have got exceptional players, but also to bring 2,000 fans, fill stadiums, and make a bucket load of noise. I'm not a fan of them bringing their own drum, to be honest with you.
No, I think that should have been stamped on in car park. But other than that, massive shout out to Norwich supporters. They were brilliant, absolutely fantastic. So.
And we've played them all already at home, but I always think that Norwich are brilliant, Hull are generally brilliant, and Birmingham. Those three sets of fans are always brilliant when they come to New York.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, well done.
Apparently, Dean Smith, according to Phil Rawlinson, Dean Smith was refreshingly the same. We knew what to expect.
Rather more direct. God, I'm glad I didn't listen to Dean Smith. I disliked him even more.
Did he watch the same game as us? Because
anyway, let's move on.
What to expect, because he's listening to Sky. Nonsense, absolute nonsense.
Here we go. Right, let's move forward to Tuesday night. First South Yorkshire derby, obviously meant to happen, I think 10th of September after the Queen died, but obviously the game's obviously got postponed for obvious reasons. Let's do ref watch before we go any further, because I know Mick will be happy about this. The EFL have put down it's the same referee it was meant to be in the first place. That's the only thing I can think. It's Keith Stroud. Keith Stroud is a referee. Nothing changed from when we last spoke to him. The stats are the same. Last time he refed us was when he refed his hometown club, Bournemouth, against us, and they won. Surprise, surprise. He's been a championship referee for a very long time. He's been in the game 18 years, so he's highly experienced. Highly experienced.
Trevor Kettle were in game a long time ago, weren't he?
Who was?
And now Trevor Kettle's retired. Keith Stroud's taken up his mantle as being widely accepted as the worst referee amongst the four divisions. That's just how it is, isn't it? So,
John Morell. We had Stroud recently, and he was very, very good.
No, I'm not wearing that. that were an off day, that John.
We've lost the last 6 games that Keith Stroud has refereed.
Yeah.
Most famously is the 4-3 loss at Swansea, where we got a question here, did the referee win the crappiest referee of the season award? Keith Stroud would have won that every season going, because that was the worst refereeing performance I think I've ever seen back down in South Wales. But we move on. That was 4 years ago now. Let's try and move on. We can't. Recent record against Sheffield United is terrible. Longer record is even worse.
Why do you even bother with this? Because every team, recent record is terrible.
It is. So we've got 1 win in our last 13 games against Sheffield United. Our last victory at Bramall Lane was 1980. I think it was 80-81 season. I think they got relegated when we got promoted. I think that's why. The last time we beat them in the second tier at Bramall Lane was 1959.
Hey.
They're a good team. They're historically a very good team. That's obviously the reason for these stats. So let's see how it goes. Let's move on to the injury list. If you weren't depressed while we were talking about the Norwich game, you're about to get even more depressed. The injury list. Georgie Kelly's hamstring out. Connor Washington's knee is very unlikely. Grant Hall, very unlikely. Richard Wood is a doubt. Shane Ferguson and Jamie McCart are major doubts, and so is Talaji Bowler. By my reckoning, that leaves us with 14 players available, and there are 6 of those who are central midfielders. I mean, this is obviously an issue, Mick. I mean, it's just one of those things. The squad isn't big enough. We know that. If we're talking about Chio as a wing back, that leaves us essentially with 3 strikers, having loaned out a striker to MK Dons, who may have not played the minutes, but he would now if he was at the squad. Josh Coyote. we don't have enough players, and that's the bottom line, isn't it?
I mean, the question is, what options do we have to recall?
None. We
Jake
could
Cole,
recall DeRose and McGuckin because they're non-league loans.
Right.
I think Jake Cole is back at the club, actually. So Jake Cole is available.
That is an option for us. Hakeem Adoffin can play in there as well. We know that. Cam Humphreys, Cam Humphreys is probably going to be available. He's on the bench on Saturday. Wes Harding's in there as well, so it's not massive. I mean, it is massive. It is an issue.
Peltier as well.
Yeah, so it's looking like it's going to be a makeshift back three. However, if you think Peltier, Humphreys, and Wes Harding, it's not that bad, is it? Let's be fair. No. Pelt's in the middle and the other two left and right. It's still a strong central defence. It's just whether Lee Peltier has the ability, whether he's willing or able to play in that central role. I would argue with his experience, he probably is. But like you said, we've got Jake Hull as well there, who, whilst he's very, very inexperienced, he's more than capable of stepping in, as is Hakeem Adoffin. So it's not a massive issue. Well, it is, but we've got options. We do have options, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we do. We're an injury away from it being a disaster. We're sort of on the cusp of it being a real disaster.
Yeah.
And like I said, the Adoffin. I think Adoffin played all of pre-season as a centre half. I think.
Yeah, he did.
Most of it. Yeah. Not ideal against one of the best teams in the division, the team who just beat top of the league 5-2, I think, at the weekend. Poor Bins and Company didn't get the line or call this time, did he?
That was funny. I mean, that was just karma, weren't it? That was just a thing of utter beauty. Absolute beautiful thing to see. It took a little bit of the disappointment off our game, to be honest. Only a little bit, but
Yeah. John Morell says, pity you couldn't have played the fixture where it was called off at the start. Their injury just sounds like most are back now. The problem is, when we were meant to play Sheffield United was the time of the season where they had nailed it. They were the only team that had nailed their form. They then went on a big dip, and they've just started to pick up again. They've now won the last 3 games in a row, I think they'd gone 6 without a win, and now they've gone 3. Now they've won 3 in a row.
They do a drop.
The due a drop, yes, but if they match what their initial start to the season was, they're due another very good performance. Poundwood UK, on his prediction, he says 3-5-2. He says Chio up top, Wiles behind him. He wants Barlas, Lindsay Rathbone in the middle, Cuffy and Bramall. Remember, Bramall is back, which is key.
Yeah.
And this is Harding, Peltier, and Humphreys as a back three. The problem with the back three, Mick, is there's no obvious centre, is there? If that sort of makes sense. There's no Grant Hall is an obvious centre of the back three. There's no Richie Wood who is an obvious centre. I'm not sure. Trust not the wrong word. I'm not sure Humphreys is a centre of a back three type player, and Wes certainly isn't. So that leaves Peltier, doesn't it?
It does. It leaves Peltz, or it leaves Hakeem Adoffin or Jake Hull, but probably Peltier. I think, being the most experienced player that we've got in there, would slip right in. I'm sure he's more than capable of playing that role. And for me, I know it's controversial, but when he came in on Saturday for Hall, I'm far more comfortable seeing Lee Peltier with the ball at his feet than I am Grant Hall. Grant Hall, when he gets the ball at his feet, for me, looks nervous. And I feel nervous that the ball's not going to reach its destination. It probably does 9 times out of 10, and it probably does 9 times out of 10 for Peltier as well. You know what I mean? It just it doesn't feel as comfortable on the ball for me at all as Lee Peltier. But that I don't know. I might be wrong with that. It just yeah. But it'll slot in.
Yeah, in parentheses, a bit later to the party, Mrs. has hidden all the sharp objects. The problem with that lineup, as Poundwood UK says, that's probably how I would go with, to be honest with you. The only change I would possibly make is Chio out wide, but with Bramall and Norton Cuffy, that might not be the right way to go. The problem is your options are basically nil. You've got Tom Eaves who can come on, who will come on which is brilliant. That's fine. No issues with that. You then got Josh Vickers. He's available.
Go front, couldn't it?
And then based on that formation, you've got a Dauphin. Or if you put a Dauphin as a centre back, you've then got another defensive player to bring on. If everything is as it seems, we have absolutely no options off the bench. Well, you've got one option from an attacking sense. It's very weird that we're lacking in so many areas. And do you feel like when listen to Matt Taylor talk about the squad size, do you think there's a frustration there of the transfer business? Or do you think he's just unhappy? He's just sort of talking out loud about the frustration. Scott I, apologies. Nicholas Skidmore, Scott I. Thank you very much. Scott I should be available. Wasn't in the squad on the weekend though. Do you think there's anything in that? Or are we just reading too much into it? Do you think? It's
difficult to know, isn't it? It's difficult to know. I mean, Paul Warren, that's a quid. Mark me down for a quid. Was not happy with the squad size, was he, before he left? He wanted more players in. So, yeah, it's clearly not big enough. However, the number of injuries that they've had in such a short space of time is unusual, I would argue. And I've seen lots of people sort of putting it down to the fact that, you know, it was the previous regime's training methods and everything else. Well, I don't see how that's right, because we didn't have this under the previous regime. You know what I mean? We didn't have 6-7 players out. We had injuries and regular injuries, but not to the same degree at the same time. So I'm not convinced about that. It's a bit of a tinfoil hat argument for me. But the squad's clearly not big enough. But again, you on the flip side of that, we've played so many games in such a short space of time, as has every other club. That's not a complaint. It's just a fact. I'm sure other clubs, Sheffield United as a perfect example, are suffering the same way in terms of injuries. They're getting theirs back. We're now going into that same phase that they've just come out of. And I'm sure other clubs are finding the same. So, yeah, I'm sure he's frustrated. He's going to be, isn't he? He's going to be, because you've lost 3 or 4 players, 5 or 6 players to injury in a very short space of time. It's going to be frustrating, but we definitely need some more depth. We definitely need some more players in there. There's no doubt about it. So whether he's having a dig at anything with his comments, I don't know.
I'd be surprised, but
yeah,
he just mentioned it a lot. That's all I thought.
Yeah.
Don't know. Gerald Sims thinks he's frustrated. I think he feels there's not enough rotation by the previous regime, possibly. Nicholas Skidmore, I think a lot of teams in the same situation, amount of games have been played due to the World Cup. We'll talk about that when we break for the World Cup. We'll start talking about the World Cup a bit more and some more complaints. John Morell says injuries simply down to too many games in close proximity with no squad to rotate. Clubs like us without large squads in this period is always going to be tough. Yeah, it is. Yeah, very frustrating. But there's nothing he can do about it at this point. There's nothing he can do about it. I think with the hand he's been dealt, I think he's been very good. And I suppose that's all we can ask for, isn't it? You can't ask for much more than that, can you?
No, you can't. And listen, we can all see the development in the squad since the change of manager. You know, it was good before for me. Performances were good, and there've been some really good performances previously, but there's been some excellent performances since. You know, they have stepped up, and once we can get into the World Cup and get rid of, you know, get a 4-week break, I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. Juju says, can we have emergency loans? No, you can have goalkeeping emergency loans. So if Victor and Josh Vickers got injured, we could then dip into the goalkeeping market. Other than that, no. There may be exceptional. You know, if we had 10 players got injured, we had 3 players available, there may be something then. But then you're limited on your loan players anyway. You can only have 5 in the squad as it is. So I don't think there's anything. There's certainly nothing at the minute. I don't think there's anything. Even if you look worse, I don't think there's anything we could do with that. Geraldine says we could go after freebies. Yeah, I think the free window is still open. That closes at some point as well. That's not open indefinitely, as far as I'm aware. We'll have to wait and see about that one. Paul Brock says Wilesy could play up front as a partner and striker. Depends how things go. It may be an option, perhaps. He's almost playing that way at the minute anyway, isn't he? A little bit.
He's playing in that number 10, isn't he? He's kind of playing the number 10 role, and I think that suits him, to be honest.
It was always going to take him time, I suppose, to play that role. It's not an easy. It's different to being a central midfielder, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's always going to take a bit of time. We'll finish on Ian Bradley with Matt Taylor's comments about an unconscious bias from refereeing decisions. We're going to finish on the referees. Ian Bradley says he thinks it's very, very conscious. I don't know. I'm surprised he said it for a start. I wonder if he's trying to build a bit of a siege mentality, Matt Taylor, because with the injuries and everything else, everything going against us, why not? You know, the best managers in the world have used that as a tactic, and I don't necessarily mind it. You look at the atmosphere towards the end of the game. I know it boiled over massively by the incidents that was talked about, but it just galvanizes everybody. It just gives everybody a cause to fight. We're all in this together type thing. Do you think that's what it is, or do you think it's being genuine?
No, I think that's what it is. I think that's precisely what it is. I don't think you can. I genuinely don't believe that there's any intentional bias from any official. I genuinely don't believe that, because then you're into the realms of match fixing, aren't you?
Yeah,
you literally are. And I don't believe that that's the case, not at all. Do I think my view is it's a question of competence. It's a question of competence, which feeds into confidence, which feeds into being allowing yourself to be influenced by the crowd and by the teams that are playing. I don't think there's any intentional bias against any team. I genuinely don't. But when if you look at whatever it is you do, if you're not competent enough to do it, you're going to lack confidence in doing it. Yeah. And if they've then got somebody screaming in your face to telling you that you've done it wrong, then that's the point at which you start to question yourself, second guess yourself, and you start to be influenced. And I suspect that's what it is, in my view, anyway. But I would never. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that when it comes to the integrity of match officials, there is no bias. There is none. I genuinely don't believe, not consciously, but there are other things that impact performance that could be construed that way, particularly when you're a club like Rotherham United, and we've got our inferiority complex that we've had for years, and I'm quite proud of it, to be honest. You know what I mean? You know, we're a little club. We know who we are. We know what we are. But no, I'm not wearing any sort of conscious attempt to keep us out of this division. I know it feels like that, but
it's just easy to what we always do as people is to try and make sense of stuff.
Yeah,
and that makes a sense to it. You know, it just fits what we want it to do.
It's a motivator.
Yeah,
it is a motivator. It's a motivator for supporters. It's a motivator for players. And Steve Evans were a master at it. Absolutely. You know, they don't want us. They don't like us. Blah de blah. You know, it's absolute nonsense. But circumstances can be made to fit that narrative, and it makes you feel. It gives you that boost as a player, as a crowd.
We all felt it on Saturday, didn't we? We all felt that surge of adrenaline and getting behind your team a bit extra and everything else.
We've seen it so many times where a few decisions go against you in a game, and the crowd that absolutely motivates the crowd, and it gets the crowd up, and it gets that, which in turn gets the team up, and you end up coming from 1-0 down to win 3-1 because referees made a daft decision and got the crowd on your back. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's what happens, and I think that's where Matt Taylor's coming from, for me anyway.
Yeah, agreed. Bradley rightly says we've never needed a mid-season break more. Give Matt Taylor the players time to get his ideas across to 3 games a week. The flight out to Cyprus, apparently, Paul Davis has reported. I think maybe the first time ever Rotherham United have had a warm weather training camp in the season. I think that's a great idea, to be honest with you. I think that's really, really good. Get the players away. I'm not sure their families will think so. But I think it's a really good idea. Get away, get to know Matt Taylor. Matt Taylor gets to know them. It could be an absolute wonderstroke, hopefully. Jamie asks, will Ben be making a return to the podcast? Who knows, to be honest with you.
I think
he's a busy bunny.
Yeah, he's currently at Loughborough University with his NFL Academy work, and he's trying to minimise his social media. I don't want to use the word footprint because people use it at work, and I just want to want to punch them. But he's trying to get himself a scholarship to an American university, isn't he? So his social media, he just wants to be about his football, that daft football, rather than real football. So I don't know whether he'll be with us. He may turn up. You never know.
Yeah,
who knows?
He won't. He's in Berlin at weekend, isn't he? Or Munich.
Yeah. He can't even be bothered to go to Luton. He wants to go to Berlin to play American football instead. It's just not right, is it?
No. Paul Brock says the type of trip was booked by the previous management team, apparently. Yeah, good. Makes perfect sense to me. Predictions. Nick, predictions for Tuesday night. Going to be a tough old night, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I just can't see us coming out of there with a point. I just can't. I'd love to. I really would love to. But I think we're going to lose. I'll go 2-1 defeat. Sorry.
No, as I am leaning the same way, I will go 3-1. They seem to have a goal in them, don't they? Not put 5 past Burnley.
Yeah.
So they've got a goal in them. 3-1 loss. We will get Danny's prediction at some point. I will find out from him where they are when we speak to him. Sorry, it's a family event tonight. Ian Colquitt goes positive, which is what we like to see. He says 1-1.
Yes. Well done, Ian. Like it.
Phil Oxley, less so. He goes 3-1. Jerry Simpson says 1-1, keeping the faith. Ian Bradley says 4-0 to the Blades. Powerman UK says 2-2. John C says a clean sheet, please. Yeah, we are due a clean sheet.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, second penultimate game before the World Cup break, before we get a 4-week break for the World Cup. I don't know exactly what we're going to do from a podcast point for the World Cup. We will be talking about it, sort of, as much as we possibly can do without sort of gritted teeth. But that's next week's problem. That's next week's problem. Kim Hayward 2-0 to the Blades. Paul Brock says 1-0 to the Millers, but mine says 2-0 loss. Jaron Sim says we need this break. Yes, we do. Lewis Lynch finishes with 2-2. There we go. That's it. Thank you, everybody. I hope we didn't go about referee too much. I know some people don't like it, but sometimes we've got to talk about things we don't like talking about. But there we go. We will be back on Tuesday evening through the Twitter space. We'll do a post-match Twitter space where we hopefully will be talking about a win or at least a point. That'd be lovely. But that's me being positive. That'll be around 10 o'clock. Whenever the game finishes, it'll be shortly after on Tuesday. We will then be back on Thursday evening live on the YouTube channel of Friday morning if you choose to listen to the audio podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else that may be, as we look ahead to the final game before the World Cup. Yay. Mick, it's been a pleasure. It's just been like the old days, just me and the hasn't it?
I know, yeah. Yeah, we should sack the other two.
Don't need them. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mick. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and all that jazz. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Ravel, vicious, but brilliant. Mule with it. Wood's got round the back, and Richie Wood has done it again. The magic man has come up with another trick. Well, here's a chance to seal it.